Are you working 80-hour weeks, double-checking every single detail, and still wondering why your business is not scaling? You might tell yourself you are just ensuring quality control. But the brutal truth is, your obsessive checking is not protecting your brand. It is actively capping your revenue. By micromanaging, you are slowly turning your highest-paid professionals into a zombie workforce. Instead of solving complex problems, they are just sitting around waiting for your instructions. Welcome to ThriveCast. In today's episode, we are tackling the silent killer of organizational growth, the micromanagement trap. Listen closely as we unpack the critical shift from being a dictating boss to a guiding coach, and explore why creating a safe blast radius for your team to make mistakes is the ultimate key to true scalability. Let's dive in.
Picture this. It's 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, the classic late night grind.
Right. You're totally exhausted. The office is completely dark, except for, the glow of your laptop screen.
Yeah.
And you've been grinding since, 7 o'clock this morning. And we are not talking about casually checking emails here.
No, you're in the weeds.
Exactly. You've spent the entire day personally double-checking the latest batch of orders, overseeing every single client meeting, and correcting every minor formatting mistake your team made.
Right.
You are working these brutal 80-hour weeks, sacrificing your health, your relationships, your sanity, just giving the business absolutely everything you have.
Giving it your all.
But, and here is the million-dollar question for you as a business owner, why is your company still losing money?
Or at least, why is it completely stuck?
Yes. Because the exact trait that made you successful in the first place, your relentless, obsessive attention to detail, is now, it's the very thing destroying your business.
It's a massive paradox. And that paradox is the exact ceiling that most small to mid-sized business owners eventually hit.
Yeah.
They hit this revenue plateau or a growth plateau, and they just assume the solution is to, do more of what got them off the ground.
Right. Work harder, grind more.
Exactly. But the mechanics of scaling dictate the exact opposite.
Which is so hard to accept.
It is.
Yeah.
Because the behaviors that take a company from 0 to 1 million in revenue are just fundamentally incompatible with the behaviors required to take it from 1 million to 10 million.
So today in our deep dive, we are tackling the micromanagement trap. And I want to be clear, we're not just looking at this as a bad habit or like an annoying personality quirk.
Yeah, not at all.
We're looking at this as a structural bottleneck, something that absolutely guarantees a business cannot scale.
It's a systemic failure.
Exactly. So the mission today is to completely deconstruct the mechanics of this trap. We're going to look at the brutal retention and productivity data behind it, and, most importantly, equip you with a highly actionable exit strategy.
And we're going to base a lot of that exit strategy on leveraging the Pareto principle.
Right, the old 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
We really need to figure out how to stop running the engine room and, get back to actually steering the ship.
I love that analogy. Because if the goal is scaling, your primary obstacle isn't the market.
Right.
And it's not the competition either. It is the founder or the manager's own psychological friction.
Wow. Their own psychology.
Yeah, the absolute refusal to distribute the cognitive load. But to understand how to escape that, we first have to dissect what that friction actually looks like in the wild.
Let's do it. Let's define the behavior first, because, nobody wakes up in the morning and updates their LinkedIn profile to toxic micromanager.
Right. Nobody thinks they're the villain.
Exactly. People usually frame this behavior to themselves as maintaining high standards or just being very detail-oriented.
The I just care more than anyone else defense.
Yes. But the reality on the ground is hovering over every single step a team takes. It's demanding these granular reports on totally inconsequential tasks.
Yeah.
And systematically stripping your employees of their actual decision-making power.
Which points directly to the underlying mechanism here. This isn't driven by malice.
Right.
It's not a desire to be tyrannical or evil. It is almost exclusively driven by profound professional anxiety.
Anxiety.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The micromanager is operating on this deeply ingrained, often completely subconscious belief that the team is just fundamentally incapable of working independently.
Like if they look away for a second, the whole thing burns down.
Exactly. They believe without them, the entire operation just collapses.
So the irony is that this tough, uncompromising, high standards persona is actually just a mask for severe vulnerability?
It's 100% a defense mechanism against chaos.
Yeah.
And when we look at the psychological roots of this behavior based on our sources, three distinct drivers really emerge.
Okay, let's break those down.
The first one is that foundational lack of trust we just mentioned. It's the assumption that your baseline of competence, how good you are on your worst day, is somehow the absolute ceiling for everyone else you hire.
That's a brutal way to view your team.
It really is. And then there is the second root, which is the only I can do it right mindset.
Oh, man. I see this one rampant among founders.
Everywhere.
Because, you built the process. The process generated revenue.
Right.
Therefore, the exact way you format the spreadsheet or the specific way you pitch at the client, it takes on this almost mystical, untouchable quality.
Yes. You've completely conflated the specific method with the ultimate outcome.
Like, if it's not my way, it's the wrong way.
Exactly. And the third root ties those first two together. It's the absolute terror of losing control.
The fear factor.
Yeah. It is the core belief that the very moment you step back, quality will plummet, clients will leave, and the business will ultimately fail.
There is a psychological phenomenon here that perfectly captures this dynamic, which our source material calls the my own child syndrome.
Oh, that's a perfect description.
Right. Because when you build something from nothing, you pour your life savings into it, you stake your entire professional reputation on its success. It just stops being a corporate entity.
It becomes an extension of your own ego.
Exactly. It's your baby.
But treating a business like an infant means you never let go of its hand.
Right.
You're constantly assessing threats. You're constantly preempting falls before they happen. But a business is not an infant.
No, it's really not.
It's a complex system. It requires a decentralized, highly capable network of individuals to operate at scale.
Yeah.
If you treat your highly paid professionals like toddlers wandering near a busy street, you guarantee that the child never matures into a self-sustaining entity.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Let's say I know my method guarantees a 0% defect rate.
Yeah.
Like I have spent 10 years bleeding to perfect this exact system. It feels practically irresponsible not to enforce that exact method, doesn't it? I mean, aren't I risking the brand, the client trust, the whole bottom line by letting some 25-year-old junior associate just experiment with my proven system?
That is easily the most common and honestly the most compelling justification for the behavior.
Right. It makes logical sense on the surface.
On the surface, yes. But let's look at the mathematics of that choice. Our sources compare this dynamic to computing, which I think is brilliant.
Okay, computing, walk me through that.
If you enforce your perfect method on every single task, you are running your business like synchronous computing.
Where the main processor literally stops everything to wait for one minor subtask to finish before it can move on.
Precisely. And while that processor is waiting, the entire system is just frozen.
Oh, wow.
In a business, your cognitive bandwidth is that main processor.
That makes so much sense.
Right. If you have to personally review and approve the font choice on a Tuesday internal slide deck just to maintain your precious 0% defect rate.
You can't do anything else.
Exactly. You cannot simultaneously analyze next quarter's cash flow or negotiate a massive new supply chain contract.
So your entire system bottlenecks.
Yes. You might maintain absolute perfection on that one slide deck, but you are creating massive, invisible defects in your long-term strategic growth.
So you are basically trading macro survival for micro control.
That's a great way to put it.
You win the battle of the perfect slide deck, but you actively lose the war of actually scaling the company.
Which is why you have to shift to asynchronous computing.
What did that look like in a business?
The main processor, you fires off a request, a defined outcome, and then you keep working on high-level, high-leverage tasks until the subroutine your team pings back with a final result.
Okay, but what if they make a mistake?
Yes, there might be a minor bug in how the subroutine executed the task. The font might be wrong,
Right.
but the system as a whole ran 10 times faster.
Wow. That completely reframes the entire concept of quality control.
It has to.
Because we're not abandoning quality. We are recalculating the acceptable tolerances of quality in exchange for velocity.
Exactly. Velocity is what scales a business.
Which brings us to the really devastating human cost of this synchronous management style. Because while the manager is obsessing over the microcontrol, the actual workforce is literally breaking down.
The intent might be quality control, but the byproduct is just massive collateral damage to your human capital.
And the statistics on this are brutal. When you look at the data from organizations like the Society for Human Resource Management and Gallup,
Shocking.
it really is. Nearly 70% of employees actively consider quitting because of micromanagement.
70%.
Yeah, 7 out of 10 people in your office are polishing their resumes right now.
And not because they hate the work.
Right. Or the mission, or even the pay. It's specifically because of the way they're being managed.
And crucially, about 30% actually execute on that desire.
1 in 3 people will just walk out the door.
Yeah. And let's talk about the actual financial modeling of that turnover, because it's not just a minor headache.
We aren't just talking about the inconvenience of doing a few Zoom interviews to replace them.
Not at all. The financial drain is catastrophic. You are losing deep institutional knowledge. You're losing client relationships.
And just raw, everyday productivity.
Exactly. Then you factor in the hard recruitment costs, the downtime of having an empty seat, and the months, literally months, it takes a new hire to reach full productivity.
So a micromanager believes they're saving the company money by, preventing a $500 mistake on a client deliverable,
Right.
while simultaneously causing a $50,000 retention failure.
It is the definition of stepping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what about the people who stay?
Oh, the zombie workforce?
Yes, the 40% who are totally miserable but haven't actually left yet. What is happening to them neurologically and psychologically under this kind of hovering management?
This is where we see a psychological phenomenon called learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness.
Yeah.
That sounds incredibly dark.
It is. It's a fundamental rewiring of the employee's motivation systems. You see, autonomy, which is the ability to make choices and actually see the impact of those choices, is a primary trigger for the human brain's dopamine reward system.
Okay.
So when you strip away decision-making power, you literally strip away the dopamine reward associated with task completion.
Because the task isn't theirs anymore, it's yours.
Exactly.
They are just sort of like the meat robot moving the mouse for you.
That's entirely how it feels to them. When an employee knows that no matter how hard they work on a creative solution, the boss is just going to come in, tear it all apart, and overwrite it with their own preferred method, the brain adapts.
Wow.
The brain realizes that expending creative energy yields zero chemical reward and usually only results in criticism.
So the employee's brain just optimizes for self-protection.
Yes, it completely shuts down initiative.
They learn to exert the absolute minimum amount of effort required to just avoid being yelled at.
Right. They stop trying to solve problems, and instead they just start bringing every single minor problem directly to you.
Which, ironically, completely reinforces the micromanager's original flawed premise.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
The manager sees the team just standing around waiting for instructions and thinks, see, I knew they were incompetent. If I don't tell them exactly what to do, nothing gets done.
They don't realize they have systematically conditioned the competence right out of their own team.
That is a terrifying feedback loop.
It's deadly to a business.
You starve the team of autonomy, so their performance drops. You micromanage harder in response, and their performance drops even further.
Down and down it goes.
Which perfectly transitions us into the concept of the scaling ceiling. Because this feedback loop doesn't just ruin the office culture. It puts a hard mathematical cap on your revenue.
We have to look at this through the lens of cognitive load and the Pareto principle.
Yes. Let's talk about the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule, because micromanagers completely invert this, don't they?
They turn it upside down.
Instead of leveraging that top 20% of strategic effort that yields 80% of the business's growth,
Right.
they sink all their precious cognitive load into the bottom 80% of trivial tasks that yield almost no real value.
They cap their own leverage. If your business requires your direct manual intervention to deliver its product or service, your business can only grow to the exact limit of your personal stamina.
And there are only 24 hours in a day.
Exactly. You cannot scale a doer.
There is a core maxim from our research here that I think every single entrepreneur needs tattooed on their forearm.
Oh, I know the one.
A business can only scale as far as its leader is willing to let go.
It's so true. It places the ceiling of the company's potential squarely on the psychological flexibility of the leader.
Yeah.
If you cannot transition from the person executing the tasks to the person engineering the system, your business will absolutely stagnate.
Because a doer's value is purely arithmetic, right?
Yes. 1 hour of work equals 1 unit of output, 1-to-1.
But a leader's value is geometric.
Exactly. They built a system of 10 people, And 1 hour of the leader's time directing that system yields 100 units of output.
But crossing that chasm from arithmetic output to geometric output, that requires abandoning the very behaviors that made you successful in the first place.
You have to start getting your little dopamine hits from crossing things off a daily to-do list.
Which is so hard.
It is, and you have to start getting that dopamine from watching other people succeed at those tasks.
Which is an incredibly difficult neurological pivot for a type A high achiever.
It's an ego death, really.
So how do we actually do it?
That's the real question.
We understand the trap. We see the financial and the psychological carnage. We know it breaks the Pareto principle. So how do we execute the 5-step exit strategy to actually get out of the engine room?
Step 1 is the hardest, but it is the absolute prerequisite for everything else. You have to trust your team and actively engineer an environment that embraces mistakes.
Okay, let's pause right there.
I know it sounds crazy.
Because embrace mistakes is terrifying advice for someone who has spent a decade protecting their brand's reputation.
Of course it is.
How do you actually let people make mistakes without just sinking the whole company?
You do it by implementing the concept of the blast radius.
The blast radius, I love that term.
It's so practical. You don't just blindly trust a brand new employee with the entire company. That's not delegation, that's just negligence.
Right.
You define the blast radius of a potential failure before you ever hand over the keys.
Meaning you calculate exactly how much damage a bad decision can realistically do in a specific area.
Precisely. Let me give you an example.
Yes.
If a junior employee is testing a new subject line on a routine marketing email, the blast radius is tiny.
Right. If the subject line is terrible, open rates drop for, what, one afternoon?
Exactly. The company survives. Nobody is getting fired. You deliberately let them experiment, fail, and learn within that confined, safe radius. But if the task is renegotiating the master lease on your massive commercial warehouse,
the blast radius there is catastrophic.
Bankrupt the company catastrophic. You do not delegate the warehouse lease until that employee has proven their judgment on 50 smaller, low-stakes blast radii.
That makes total sense. You are building fault tolerance into the system.
Yes.
You aren't avoiding failure entirely. You are just shrinking the cost of failure so that it basically becomes an affordable tuition fee for your team's development.
That is a perfect way to frame it. An affordable tuition fee. Which leads directly into step 2 of the exit strategy. Delegate with intention.
Notice our sources don't just say dump tasks.
Right, dumping work is just abdication. Delegation is about transferring ownership.
Okay, what is the actual mechanical difference between delegating a task and delegating ownership?
It's all in the framing. When you delegate a task, you are saying, hey, put these numbers into this spreadsheet by 3 p.m.
Right, the employee's only responsibility there is obedience.
Exactly. But when you delegate ownership, you say, listen, we need a financial model that shows us whether we can actually afford to hire 2 new engineers next quarter. Figure out the best way to determine that.
Oh, wow. The psychological shift there is massive.
It changes everything.
The employee goes from, I'm doing a chore for my boss, to, I own the outcome of this strategic question.
And ownership breeds capability. When they own the outcome, they engage their critical problem-solving faculties. They start acting like mini-founders.
Which is exactly what you want.
Yes, because to build a geometric system, you need a team of problem-solvers, not a team of order takers.
But to make that work safely, to hand over that ownership without losing your mind, we need steps 3 and 4.
Set clear expectations up front and focus on outcomes, not processes.
These 2 steps are the ultimate antidote to that synchronous computing problem we talked about earlier.
They really are.
It's the transition from giving turn-by-turn directions to simply providing the final GPS coordinates.
I love the GPS analogy.
Right. If I tell my marketing director that the outcome we need is a 20% increase in qualified leads by Q3 and the budget is exactly $50,000, those are the coordinates and those are the constraints.
And once you provide those coordinates and constraints, your job as the leader is to step back.
Just get out of the way.
Fundamentally, it does not matter if they achieve that 20% increase through LinkedIn ads, a webinar series, or, I don't know, carrier pigeons.
As long as it works.
As long as the outcome is achieved within the ethical and financial constraints you set, the process is entirely up to them.
That has to be incredibly liberating for the leader once they get used to it.
Oh, it frees up so much time.
You instantly reclaim all that cognitive bandwidth you used to spend just policing how people worked.
You are finally applying the Pareto principle to your management style.
Oh, there it is.
You spend 20% of your time defining the pristine parameters of the goal, and you get 80% of your time back to actually focus on high-level strategy.
But here is the practical friction point that I think a lot of people listening will feel.
Okay, what is it?
Step 5 is give feedback, not control.
Right.
If I give them the coordinates and then step back, how do I ensure they aren't driving the project off a cliff?
That's the fear.
I mean, how do I monitor the progress without relapsing into micromanagement?
This is exactly where we separate micromanagement from actual leadership.
Okay.
Abandoning micromanagement doesn't mean abandoning accountability. You still establish regular check-ins,
Right.
but you completely change the nature of the conversation during those check-ins. They must be coaching sessions, not interrogations.
Let's break down the difference in the actual language used in those two scenarios.
Sure. So an interrogation sounds like this. Show me exactly what you did yesterday. Why did you use that software instead of this one? Let me see the draft before you send it.
Yikes. Yeah, that assumes incompetence.
It does. You are demanding proof of obedience.
Right.
Now, a coaching conversation sounds like this. Hey, are we still on track for the Q3 target? What roadblocks are you hitting? Do you need me to clear any budget or resource hurdles for you?
The tone is completely different. The first one seeks to control. The second one assumes competence and just seeks to remove friction.
Exactly. You are acting as a resource, not a roadblock.
Right.
And if they are veering off course, your feedback course corrects their trajectory without you ever having to grab the steering wheel.
Right, you guide them.
You ask questions that guide their judgment rather than dictating their actions. Like, if we deploy that strategy, how do you think our biggest competitor will react?
You force them to think critically.
Yes, rather than just giving them the answer.
It's the difference between a dictator who runs onto the field to throw the ball themselves
Right.
and a coach who stays on the sidelines, analyzes the play, and adjusts the strategy for the next down.
And the data is crystal clear on which of those paradigms builds a scalable championship team.
Absolutely. Let's synthesize this blueprint for everyone.
Let's do it.
We started by looking at that brutal 11 p.m. grind. The realization that the exhausting effort of microcontrolling every single variable isn't some noble badge of honor.
No, it is a symptom of severe operational anxiety.
Yeah. We saw how synchronous management destroys human capital. It triggers the neurological shutdown of learned helplessness,
Stripping away the dopamine.
causing your best people to leave and your remaining people to just stop trying altogether.
The zombie workforce.
And we identified the ultimate scaling ceiling. You cannot grow a business past your own personal capacity if you insist on being the bottleneck for every single decision.
You have to leverage the Pareto principle.
Escaping this requires actual structural changes. It requires defining the blast radius for, say, failures, delegating outcomes instead of tasks, and replacing those stressful interrogations with coaching.
It requires an ego death. You have to finally accept that your way is not the only way.
Right.
And that a team executing a B+ strategy asynchronously is vastly more powerful than you executing an A+ strategy all by yourself.
That is so powerful. So we have a highly practical challenge for you listening today.
Let's hear it.
You do not need to change your entire corporate structure by tomorrow morning.
Start small.
Just look at your calendar for this week. Find one task, one project, or one decision that you are currently hoarding.
We all have one.
Define the outcome you want. Define the constraints. Hand it to a capable member of your team, and then completely step away from the process.
We'll feel uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. Reclaim that mental bandwidth and use it to look at the horizon instead of the engine room.
And that initial anxiety you feel when you let go, it is completely normal. Lean into it.
Yeah.
Because that friction is the exact feeling of your business finally beginning to scale.
We will leave you with this final thought to analyze as you look at your own operations today.
Okay.
What if the absolute highest, most profitable use of your time right now is simply getting out of your team's way?